Whew. We are here. All right, so we're gonna wait, get started at our normal 4 after, let folks join, get settled, etc. What a day. What a day. Yes, I was scrambling a little bit. I'm trying to get an order out. Somebody ordered some split pea flour, and I always feel terrible about not getting that out as quickly as possible because split pea flour is used a lot of times as a reactionary measure to mites, and so I want to get that help to whoever needs it as quick as possible. But I see you there, Darkling Acres. I see you. And I'm assuming you can hear me okay? Can you give me a thumbs up on that? Thank you. Perfect. You knew what was coming. I love it. All right. Welcome, everybody. We'll get started at 4 after here. Good afternoon for me. Good evening. Good morning for everyone else, wherever you might be. Absolutely busy day. Wally's been running me around like crazy. No. Lots of stuff going on. Lots of really good stuff going on. Mealworm stuff, soldier fly larva stuff. The food waste stuff is just, I can see a good outcome. But it's busy too. Very, very busy. If you guys have any questions, anything you want to chat about, throw it out there. We'll get started at 4 after. Keith, that did confuse me. Okay, good to know. I got you now. My brain is not very good in the memory department, so I tend to, if I can look it up, I won't remember it. So, Felicia, good to see you. Wally, thank goodness for notifications. Yes. Yes, indeed. Kate, welcome. Good to see you. Man, busy day. Busy. I'm trying to remember if there was anything specific we were going to talk about today. I don't remember. I think the farm is okay for us to go in if people have questions about that. No big changes recently. Speaking of changes, I did just get some new mesh in. So I ordered some mesh from a company. I purchased from them before, but not mesh. So I'll hold off on mentioning it. I don't want you guys to get the wrong impression and go order things. I don't know. I have not opened the box yet. I literally just got it today. But I need to make more sifting towers. And so I ordered some mesh to get that going. So the sifting machine is on hold, and I'm going to try a different path with that. So Sue, hello. Good to see you. But otherwise, I think everything's pretty status quo on the farm. Several tests with some soldier fly larvae going on. Pretty interesting observations with them. Hey, Vicky, doing good. I'm doing good. It's busy, but for good reasons. I did have to push this out a week with some family stuff, but all that's okay now. We're back on a good track, and now it's cranking heavy and hard on the food recycling, soldier fly, and mealworm expansion. All right, we are we're at 5 after. I got to chatting. So good afternoon, good evening, good morning, everyone. My name is Justin Meyer. I'm an admin here in the Mealworm Farming Co-op group, along with Max and Scott. And we do these live sessions usually every 2 weeks at this point to just kind of get together with folks from the group and talk through any questions, concerns, issues you've got with mealworms. I'm also expanding some operations into soldier fly larvae, so I can chat through that. Several of the folks here in the group have mentioned that they have some experience with that, which is awesome. I think there's a lot of similarities there, insect to insect, that we could potentially use to our advantage. And so things here are pretty much an open book as far as questions, things you might want to see. The farm is open. I was mentioning that just a minute ago. Nobody's in there right now. My sensor push sensor stopped analyzing particles, particles per million in the air. So I think it's okay at this point. I need to clean the sensor off probably. It's probably not the sensor. It's probably just all the dust in the farm. But I need to get that squared away and taken care of. But if there's something you guys want to see in the farm, I can show you. We are in my office right now. It's a disaster. All you can see is this nice little frame here. But this place is just a disaster. But it's an operational farm. That's how it should be. So everything is squared away this week, and so now it's just time to execute. But if you guys have any questions, Wally, I see yours there. If you guys have questions, things you want to chat about, anything you want to bring up, please throw them in the comments. If I don't acknowledge your comment, tag me in it. Try sending it again. Every now and then Facebook doesn't show me the comments, doesn't show me all of them. So I'll try to tackle them as we go through here. I do have a hard stop at 3 o'clock my time, top of the hour. I need to head to Columbia for deliveries to two customers. So super busy day today. I'll try to wrap things up. If anybody would be kind enough to give me like a 10-minute warning, because sometimes I tend to keep jabbering. So Wally, we are on you here. As temps get warmer and warmer, will this benefit Midwest mealworms production? Not necessarily. So I'm not an advocate of super high heat. So there's a couple ways to look at it, Wally. And I look at it potentially different than some folks. So from a heat or temperature perspective, heat is generally good, right? So when we're shipping mealworms, that's not always the best. It's actually easier to ship in colder temperatures. But from a shipping perspective, things become a challenge. I'm tackling that this year in a different way. I'm researching some ice pack options. I'm going to do some testing with putting containers and cups together because I think that there's a solution out there to be able to ship things in containers better. So I'm working on that, both for the mealworms and the soldier fly larvae. And then from a raising perspective, high heat is not always a good thing. So you can get too high and cook those trays, and then it becomes a battle of keeping up with your AC to keep that temperature in control. What I found last summer is that the AC, well, it was several summers ago, my AC went out. And what I decided to do at that point is, instead of running, like, you can run your farm at potentially 85 degrees Fahrenheit, and the mealworms seem to like that a lot better. I have not run at that temperature for consistent weeks and weeks on end, though. So that's a theory on my end. I think I've heard others say that higher temperatures tend to do better for all stages of life. They're more active, they're eating, they're growing, that sort of thing. From a commercial farming perspective, though, and even from an at-home farming perspective, I advise not to go that high. Give yourself some breathing room in the event that something bad happens, so that you have time to address that. So I run at 78 degrees Fahrenheit year-round. So in the winter months, I'm cranking up the heat. In the summer months, we're using the AC. And in mid-Missouri, sometimes we're using the AC during the day and the heat at night. Yay! And so long-term, I'd like to figure out a better way to do that from a use what we have here perspective. But for right now, that's where we're at. I had a thought about the temperatures and now I can't. Oh, so from an at-home perspective, if you're doing this in your basement, in a closet, somewhere nearby, maybe out at the farm with the chickens, heat is beneficial. But if you keep things lower, around that high 70s, that gives you time for something even as straightforward as grabbing a fan and putting a fan on the colony to cool them down. It buys you time to address the issue before you get into dangerous temperatures that will kill off the colony. So risk mitigation, I'm playing the long game of wanting to be around here years and years and years. So I'm not going to sacrifice the short term to get better production now with the potential risk of just everything getting wiped out. Really good question, sir. Debbie, is it strange that I can't feed my worms to my chickens? I feel like my worms are my littles. I was gonna the first part. I'm thankful for the clarification, Debbie, because of the first part I was like, your chickens don't like the mealworms. That I've never heard of such a thing. But you not wanting to feed them makes sense, right? Because you have worked very hard to get to the point where you have your own mealworms, your own larvae that you've taken care of the beetles, you've taken care of those pupa, you've taken care of the eggs until they've hatched, you've fed them, you've monitored them, right? That's a lot of work. It's very similar to raising, once people start doing it, I hear things like, this is similar to me raising my quail or raising my chickens. Like, I don't want to end their lives. And so the folks get into that scenario where they're taking care of a living being. And, conscious, non-conscious, whatever your theories are there, you have that pull of empathy towards something that you've taken care of and raised, even though you've probably been raising it for that specific purpose, to utilize it in the grand scheme of things in a better way. Sometimes that's difficult. 100%. 100%. Wally, cryo packs for shipping. So I'm on Wally's question now. If anybody has any questions on anything or wants to see anything in the farm, please let me know. We are mobile, so I am on the phone, so we can move around if we need to and flip around so that you don't have to stare at me the whole time. Man, I need a haircut. Sorry. Wally, cryo packs for shipping. Something like that. So many moons ago, I had tested at some point just some random ice packs that I had laying around or that I could get access to from some folks in town. I think we might have mentioned it in the co-op group at some point of like collecting, folks that get medicines shipped to them will come with those ice packs that are one-time use from the pharmaceutical world's perspective because of their margins. Let's just leave that one alone. But they're just kind of stockpiling and adding up because they're not wasted. They can continue to be used. So I grabbed a few of those, tested, and everything made the box sweat, not work. Didn't work out very well. Fast forward to now, and I need to retest for a few things. I'm getting into more and more bird stores, more folks that want pre-packaged cups because I can get those filled and out the door pretty quickly when inventory allows me to. Things are really busy right now. But I have a very efficient way of getting those things packaged up, and I'm going to make that better as time goes on and volume increases. And so I need a way to ship those things in during the hotter weather because the cups are going to help retain heat, right? So I've got a couple options coming that claim that they're sweat proof, right? So various reviews say, I don't know, but maybe it's enough to be able to get from point A to point B, with the potential long term as well of, if you ship consistently to somebody over time, and then, at some point just tell them, if you have space to collect these, keep them because they're reusable, keep them. I mean, you can use them if you want to. If not, store them somewhere in a box. And then once you get enough to fit in a box of something that I'm shipping you, I'll include a return label, throw those ice packs back in there, ship them back to me. And that way, maybe do some sort of like credit system where you return 10 packs, you get, I'll buy those from you, or potentially buy them from a discount, give you a credit to your account, that sort of thing. I'm very big on trying not to introduce wasteful things into the process. So that's also part of the packaging shipping criteria that I have, Wally. All right, so I'm down with Vicky's comment. So Felicia, Tristan's here. Hello, Felicia and Debbie. I see you down there as well. We're getting there. Vicky, I need help with getting beetles out of pupa. I use napkin, but they don't all stick, so we just handpick them out. They are persnickety. So we have this issue as well. And what we'll try to do to mitigate it as much as possible, single layer of pupa. So if you start stacking them up, or if you include bran or substrate in there, what I've noticed is it's a place for the beetles to go burrow, right? And they want to go down, they want to get away from the light. And so they'll go down into that as opposed to coming up and exploring and grabbing onto that, to the paper towel. A couple things I've noticed to potentially help with that: single layer on your pupa. And then from a paper towel perspective, what I've started doing is I'll lay the paper towel, like I've got a two sheet paper towel there, a 2 sheet here. I'll lay another one, like a half sheet on top, I don't want to get real thick on the pupa. You don't want a lot of pressure on the pupa. You want to be able to hatch out of that thing okay. And so I'll put that, the two here, and then I'll have one small little half sheet basically on top. And what I'm noticing is the beetles are going in between those two sheets. Because they've got protection from above and separation from the pupa and that plastic tray, right, that doesn't feel very natural. The paper towel, I think, feels more natural to them, or they just like those tight places they want to get in and hide, which is their natural habitat, right? You find a lot of darkling beetles in wood, in trees that have fallen in between the bark and the hardness of the tree. You'll find those tunnels in there. They go in there, they pupate, and then the beetles end up living in there, right? They like those tight, confined spaces. So it might be beneficial to put another paper towel on top and see how that does, to see if that helps get those beetles up in there so you have less to hand pick out. That being said, we still have trays where, once the pupa are done pupating, we'll still have some beetles in there, and I just take that whole tray then, the dead pupa and the beetles, and I will take that, and those contents get fed to our quail at home, and the quail eat that stuff up, both the pupa and the beetles. If you've got chickens, poultry, anything along those lines, I don't know about the reptile community, Wally. If my thoughts are that the pupa, which would be hard at that point because they died, and the beetles, which have a hard exoskeleton, those might be too hard for a reptile to eat and consume. So much harder exoskeleton for the beetles than for the larva. So my thought is that may not work for the reptile folks. But chickens, the quail absolutely love them. They go bonkers, and they eat much less of the feed that's available to them as a result. So give that a shot, Vicky. Let me know how that turns out. Felicia, is there a reason your shirt is on inside out? You caught me. Yes, I was intending to change before this, but things have been rather hectic around here today. And so I have a political shirt on for a family friend who ran for office. Even though she ran on a post, she made shirts. And so I had the shirt on, and I just didn't want to cross lines. I don't think it's a bad thing, but just being mindful of the audience that we have here and just not broadcasting that. All right, so that was Felicia's question about my shirt. Caught me. Debbie, as a nurse, I like the term margins. There's always folks out there, right? Yeah. Velazar, good to see you, sir. Vicky, Felicia, you're welcome, Vicky. Wally, pupa for geckos, broccoli for me. Interesting. So the pupa for geckos then would be a good way to repurpose those so that they don't get wasted. Pupa actually have more protein than the larva, so there's still a good source. If I still had birds around, I don't feed the birds enough to keep them here. If I fed the birds, I wouldn't have things to send anywhere, and so I have not tried it with the birds yet, but I think it would probably work there. Vicky, shirt inside out all the time. Yeah. Bryce, welcome. Good to see you. Tristan, definitely with constipated reptiles. Yeah, I figured it'd be too much for the general broad spectrum feed these to reptiles. Reminds me of like the debate around, and we don't need to debate, Wally or Tristan, the debate around mealworms for bearded dragons, right? I think that's a thing in the reptile community, and I just stand back and I'm the mealworm guy. Felicia, what kind of geckos? Yasik, hi, I'm thinking about dust extractor. Any thoughts? Dust extractor for like a room to exhaust the air out. Is that what you're asking, Yasik? Or dust extractor for face mask option? Give me some context there on what you're thinking. Wally, funny, I have a pupa, dark up and dry up. I use them for isopods. There you go. Because it's a decaying material, right? And so isopods will eat them right up. One of the things that, I shouldn't, sometimes I worry about doing these because I come up with all these crazy ideas. I wonder if I could take those, soften them up with some water and feed them to the soldier fly larva. That's for another day. Freshly molted is supposedly okay. Oh, okay, because Tristan, they're softer, right? So larvae and beetles, when they hatch, when they pupate in that first first little amount of time when they're super white is when everything is nice and soft, and then they'll harden up and get crunchy. Yasik, instead of face mask. Gotcha. Okay, so to loop those two things together, Yasik, you're asking about dust extractor in where it is that you're working with your colony to extract that air and keep it clean to avoid having to wear a face mask. What I have observed in the farm here is that in our current setup, we have a 12-inch exhaust fan, high CFM exhaust fan is for a greenhouse, and it's sucking air in through the outlets. Like, I need to open up some more area to be able to allow it to pull air in, but it is exhausting pretty efficiently right now from a use perspective, not from a maximizing CFMs, but it's pulling the air out. And what I have noticed is even with that thing on and running, right in the main area where we're working, there's a lot of dust just kind of pluming out. So if you were able to make a cross breeze in your farm to push that stuff away from you or pull it away from you so it doesn't get near you, you could potentially look at that option. I would test the living daylights out of that though and get a good sensor from an air particulate perspective so that you can be extremely confident that the system you end up setting up with an extractor that's blowing that stuff out and pulling in fresh air to make sure that works and is keeping that number very, very low. I don't like to go into my farm if the particulates are above 50, and so that's a pretty low threshold. So that's kind of my thoughts there. It worries me only because I haven't tested it myself personally, and so I'm not sure what it would take to do that. The other thing, though, is if you do set that kind of system up where anytime you're in there working, you've got to be extracting that air, you're pulling fresh air in. And if that fresh air is cold or hot, now you've got to make sure that you're regulating that temperature and being able to deal with it. In Missouri, what we'll have is a problem where middle of the day in the summer, it's going to get 100 plus. And so if we run our exhaust or we're in there working and we have to exhaust because we don't have masks on, then that air that we're pulling in is 100 degrees, and now it's got to be cooled. And you're battling that hot air. You're also battling the air from the colony. You're battling the human temperature that's being put out. And so that's a lot to have to keep up with if you're going to look at extraction. You can look at things like one of the thoughts I had was using a what are they called? Like for wood shops, a dust collector for wood shops. If you get a fine enough filter bag, I wonder if that would work to be able to clean that air without having to exhaust it. But whatever you do there, make sure you've got the sensors so that you can test that system before you go maskless. Okay. And the other thing I would ask is, why do you want to go maskless? For me personally, a couple things are going on that I can mention, and we also have one of our co-op members is working with a couple mask companies to try to test some things out. We don't have any results yet, but we'll have some feedback soon for that. But one of the things that I'm doing this past weekend, I got some different cartridges for the face mask that I have, and they're smaller, they're much thinner. So the ones I have now are like this, the new ones are this, and they're way lighter. So when I have to wear that full face respirator, after hours, it gets heavy, right? With these smaller cartridges, they're not that bad. It's not uncomfortable. You don't have to have it as tight. What I've noticed is you don't have to have it as tight because it doesn't have to hold that weight while you're moving around. So that's been really nice from a comfort perspective. And it doesn't seem to be triggering my allergies. So if I were to go on that farm now with either a malfunctioning mask or no mask at all, my asthma would get triggered within 5 to 10 minutes, depending on level of particulates in the air in there, especially if I was working. And so I'm kind of a good guinea pig and willing to do that every now and then, not all the time. always wear your mask, right, Wally? And so I have started using that cartridge, and it's working. I've noticed I can smell more things. So it's lower filtering, but it's still filtering out the particulates because I have not had any issues yet. I'd like to use that for several months, though, before I claim any sort of victory there, and we'll go from there. But I'm curious why you were trying to avoid the mask. Okay, so we are Velazar. Can we say that the protein level is higher just before turning to pupa? I don't know. Is it? Is there some data on that? So the protein levels. I'm trying to remember the website that I saw it from. I'll try to reply here, Velazar, to the link. But analysis would be good because it would be really interesting to see right before pupation. I don't know how you tackle that. Anyway, right before pupation, what's the protein level? And then what is it after pupation? And then do the beetles while you're at it, right? That could be interesting to see what the protein levels are. But what would the end, like, what started to help me temper my experiments is what's the end result of that from a farming perspective, both commercial and just at home. So if we were somehow able to say that just before pupation, your larvae have an uptick of 30% protein, let's say, but you have to catch it within an hour before they pupate. How do you operationalize that, right? Like, there's that balance there of like thinking through what would be the potential use or impact of that. But I'm always up for experimenting. I get myself in trouble. Tristan, yeah, you can do that with male dubio and white. There you go. Same concept. All right. I've seen way more frass with the wheat bran. That's good. That means they're eating more, so they're pooping more, right? And they're growing more, hopefully. Rice. A wet curtain air cleaner could work. A wet curtain air cleaner. I'm going to have to Google that. Wet curtain air cleaner, because I'm not familiar with what that is. Bryce, you have a very interesting set of knowledge, very interesting grouping of knowledge about things. I love it. Variable speed, industrial air cleaner, wet curtain air cooler filter air conditioner. All right, I have zero experience or knowledge of these, so I'm going to have to do some research and reading on what these can accomplish. I am looking at installing an HVAC system into the farm. Last summer, the 14,000 BTU air conditioner that I had could not keep up with the farm. So I need something bigger. And I'm looking at a larger unit that's also a heat pump unit so that it should work much more efficiently for both heating and cooling. The heating was crazy. The bills in the last few months have been absolutely crazy. So hopefully that will help. I am just a barefoot Kalari. Yeah, I was like, don't like masks. I use sometimes when sifting frass. I 100% get you. And I think from a comfort perspective, these new cartridges might be the thing to help get people past that, because the ones that I'm using are they're heavy, they suck. But they keep me mealworm farming. So that's the trade-off. Ideally, we can find some alternative options that work, that might be, like build a tiered system for both a budget perspective and an optimal or specific use perspective, right? So like I wear glasses, so when I have to wear my full face respirator, I take my glasses off. Contacts just don't work well for me right now. That doesn't bother me because I can still see close up. I can still do the work I need to do and make sure I'm reading the numbers when I'm weighing things out correctly, that sort of thing. But not a lot of people can do that, or some people wouldn't be able to do that, right? And so if we had an option that allowed you to wear glasses, like have those different options available would be nice. But yeah, I agree with you. Wearing the mask is rough, but if you want to do this for the long term, it's an absolute necessity. And I think once you potentially have any issues from a lung perspective, I think you're stuck with them. From an eye perspective, irritated eyes are always a possibility with frass and dust particulates in the air. But what I've noticed with frass is that you have a much higher chance of getting styes. I got one of those once, and it was not fun. It clears up. It's not a permanent thing as long as you take care of it. As far as I know, I'm not a medical doctor. Please talk to your doctor. But it just wasn't fun. Hurt my eye, didn't feel good. Not something I want to do. So anytime I'm messing around with that mask and I'm thinking, just don't worry about it, I just remind myself of what's happened. So, yeah. All right. We are a little bit over the halfway point. So, awesome questions. If you guys have anything, please let me know. Throw it out here in the comments. Vicky, with notch on the lungs, not taking a chance. I like it. It's not worth the potential downsides, right? And 95 mask will work. As long as it's properly sealed on your face, it stops that stuff from getting in. And what I'm noticing about the new cartridge is that the smells are interesting. So mealworm farms, kept in good standing, don't stink like, rotting anything, right? Or decaying matter. Every now and then you might have a tray that is a little too damp and has too much dead material in it. And so that could potentially start to smell a little bit. But usually where my experience is on that is it's a tray that's up high that I am not diligently looking at and taking care of, and I'm water gel crystalling that thing on a normal schedule, and it's not consuming the moisture before I put more in. That's my fault, not the mealworms or the colony or anything like that. So those are usually the scenarios where I run into smells with the mealworm farm. The frass has a small odor to it, but it's not terrible. But what is interesting is this past week, I had the heater off because we got up into like 80s or 90s, or high 80s into 90s. And so the heater wasn't running for a couple days. And then it finally did, and the dust started to burn off a little bit. I could smell that through the new cartridges. So, Debbie, one thing I did during COVID when I was seeing patients in some of the red areas, I put a little bit up on the bridge of my nose, created a seal that worked for me. I also wear glasses. Good advice, Debbie. Thank you for the sucky work that had to happen during COVID. My wife is in the healthcare world as well. It was not fun. So, all right. Container update. Let me see if I can find one of the new containers. Here we go. So I started tinkering with, and you may have seen some posts recently of a new clear container with what they are calling what is called a waffle lid. And this one has a paper filter on top of it. And so if I can get the light right, you can see the cross section there. It's basically got all those squares that are holes, ventilation holes. And then it has this layer of paper there that creates allows the air to go through, right? Because bigger hole, but keeps the insects in. So I grabbed a case of these to play with and ship in them. And then I had a bunch of my bird store customers. So those of you that sell to different stores and even individuals, what I was hearing is that customers that come into the store want to see the mealworms before they buy them. And that makes sense, right? So as a consumer, you want to see that thing before you buy it and walk out the door with it and then find out suddenly it's got some dead stuff in it, right? And so I have been using the blue Fabri-Cal cups, these guys. There's some pupa in here for a little thing I did. So I've been using those blue cups and they are not see-through, right? And so both the cups and the lids that I got are clear so that you can pick it up. It's harder to see through this to see what's in it, right? So if you pick the cup up and you look down on it, you're just going to see the paper. But if you pick it up and look through the side of the cup, you can see it. But I like these because there's much more ventilation in these as compared to the Fabri-Kal cups that just have the pinholes. So I'm really excited about testing these out. I've got a couple tests going right now with black soldier fly in different containers, a mesh bag, and one of these sideways. I'm curious to see how they do, if they will eat through it after any particular amount of time. Because that opens up some options if they don't, to potentially ship in skinnier boxes with better ventilation in hot summer months. So, Wally, I'm very excited about what you think of these from an end user perspective. The one thing I don't like about these new lids is the way you have to put them on the container, and that's more of a container thing than a lid thing. The containers are just being made thinner and thinner. Blame that on whatever you want. But what that means is, like with our current cups, with these guys, I can put this on the table, put the lid on it, and just squish the whole thing down. Quick, fast, boom, 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 boom. These things are rated for higher pressure. They're actually for vending machines for bait. So they're durable, they last. You can drop them from 5 feet and they'll stay closed, that sort of thing. These guys, you have to put one in and go around the rim. You can't push it down because the containers they go onto are not as structurally sound. So, and they don't fit super well on here, right? So that comes off too easy. That's not going to ship well. If this is in my car and I put it down, that easily just pops right up. So can't do that. But really excited about these. And then, let me check for things here. We're going Wally, used heavily in the dart frog hobby for fruit fly containers, the tops. Makes sense. Lots of air movement, and it keeps the little flies in, right? The other thing I'm testing are paper cups. So I posted a couple videos on these. Initial testing failed miserably, but that's because I didn't put the lid on. I came in the next day and they had crawled out. And so kind of worries me that the lid is going to need to really be on nice and super snug. I was very interested in how this might pan out for the fishing world. A couple of folks commented, well, what happens when they get wet? So I need to test that as well. I'm a little worried they're not going to seal up, which is unfortunate. So might have to find a different option. This won't be the last thing I try. What I'm wanting to avoid are these little tiny plastic containers. You go out fishing, the wind blows it off into the lake, and we're just getting more stuff in the lake. So with the lid on, it took them 2 days to eat through they actually ate through the lid first. Even though it was upright like this, somehow they ate through the inside lip there. So some guy went scaling up the side here, held on all the way over to here, and then started eating. Ate his way out. Wildest thing I've seen. So that took 2 days to do that. I have some in a cold storage because the intent is to fill these, ship them to a store, store them in the fridge, and then somebody who wants to fish comes in and gets one. They're going to use that day. So if they eat through it in 2 days, I'm okay with that because you're going to go through it in a day. If you don't, put it in the fridge anyway when you get home, and then less chance of them eating through. The one in the fridge, nothing's moved out of that thing since this started 5 or 6 days ago. So that's looking good. Nathan, good to see you. Pensacola is here. Wally, as a higher quantity consumer, my priorities are number 1, quality, number 2, quality, number 3, quality, number 4, price, number 10, see the mealworms. Yeah, I gotcha. Felicia, I'll check with a few reptile supply shops that I use to see if they have those lids that fit a higher quality deli cup. Thank you. I haven't tried, what was I going to say? I use the cup that kind of came recommended, right? So there might be some other options out there that work better from a durability perspective. So the seal on these is great. Like inside of the cup they're supposed to be connected to, the seal's great. You know, from a toss it into your car when you get in it kind of thing. I'm not worried about anything spilling out. It's the labor on me to have to go and or build a simple little machine that'll do it for me. So, but we'll see how these test out. I think they'll be fine. Whew. So that's some testing that's going on. I have a couple other things I can't talk about, hopefully soon. Yeah, lots of good things. The food waste stuff blows my mind with the soldier fly. But anyway, we can talk about that if you guys have questions about it. Vicky, question: how many worms should I hold back to go into the colony? If you want to maintain the size that you have, Vicky, so let's say you've got your 3 drawers and you're happy with that production and it's working for you and you just want to keep that size, you want to hold back about 10 to 15%. So if you collect 1,000 larger mealworms, keep back 100 to 150 of those and let them pupate. If you want to expand, then hold back more. So raise that up to 20%, 25%. And those are conservative numbers. You can get away with smaller if you have a good system going and you have good pupation, low die-off, etc. I tend to go a little higher from that perspective. One, because I want to make sure that I keep the colony I've got. Right now we're expanding, so I'm much higher than that. But it's a good way to, as you get into that rhythm, to understand, be a little bit higher, hold back a little bit more. It's going to feel bad because you want to feed those things off, right? But you want to make sure you're sustaining that colony longer term. Keith, I just started a bird shop retailer. The owner needs the substrate I supply in the cups to be gluten-free. What do you suggest? Gluten-free substrate. My initial question is, why does it need to be gluten-free? Gluten-free. Does cornmeal have gluten in it? That probably somebody's probably laughing at me right now. Gluten-free. I don't know anything off the top of my head. Cornmeal gluten-free. Cornmeal is gluten-free. It's a coarse flour. You could probably get it not as coarse. It's like if it's a flour, that I don't know if that'll work very well. Flour tends to condense, and then the mealworms don't go to the bottom. And especially if you're cupping it, you want to have enough in there. Cornmeal might work though if you can get a coarser cornmeal. Although it says it's a coarse flour, so that I would try cornmeal. Anybody else have? I know folks will actually feed cornmeal. Somebody says cornmeal is gluten-free. You beat me to it, the Googling. I love it. Yeah, I'd give that a try, Keith. Grab some, get a small amount, put some in with your mealworms in a container, and then store them however, the store stores them, and see how they do. Interesting. Lid, Superior Shipping Supply. TSK Supply as well has them. I haven't ordered from them, but I did see they seem to have good prices on that. Yasik, I don't do that often, but spotted that I cough more and more. If you're not wearing your mask, you're going to start having some issues, and they will appear. Again, not medical advice. I'm not a doctor. Please talk to your doctor. I don't know your entire medical history, anything else going on with you, other than you aren't wearing your mask for the mealworms. So that cough, although it might go away, one thing that could happen is you could develop and maintain or keep asthma-induced allergy. That is a thing, 100%. The frass triggers my asthma, but we have countless stories in the co-op group. You can go search stuff on allergies, coughing, different things like that, where people have said, I've started to have these issues, what's going on? And they're allergic to the frass. So definitely keep that in mind. Sue, not surprised they made it to the top and chewed through, Justin. I've been dealing with COVID for too long now, so the worm farm has not had the attention it usually gets. That stinks. I hope you get better soon. COVID is nothing to mess around with. Take care of yourself first. If you don't take care of yourself, mealworms aren't going to get taken care of. I've had some escape from a bin that's probably 10 inches deep. It's wild too. Like if they find the right handholds to get there, they're out. They're gone. And then it's just a train, right? And you'll come back 2 hours later and there's stuff everywhere. So Keep those bins clean if you can. Vicky, where are we at? Oh, thank you. I'm working on rotation. Yes, you do. The sugar glider and chickens love it. You're right. So you want to feed those to sugar gliders, and now you're not going to be able to. You're going to keep those and feel selfish about it, but those will turn into more and more, so you'll be able to keep things going for those sugar gliders. Those little guys are cool. I've never seen one personally, like in person, but I've got several customers that have sent me videos and stuff. Super cool. Testing cornmeal and rice flour. Perfect. You're on it, Keith. Kayla, cornmeal's gluten-free. I have to grind up oats, have celiac, so can't do wheat bran, sadly. The grinding is a pain in the neck, but in your scenario, that's the best thing to do because of the celiacs, but also because oats are just a pain in the neck to have to sift, sort, deal with, and so grinding them up, that's a good option. I have a grinder here. I don't know if it gets it coarse enough. I think it would. Because I actually use it to basically make the split pea flour out of the split peas. So it may work on oats. I've got some. I can try that out. Then I might be able to make it in bigger batches for people. Would love to hear how this goes. Rice bran is a big thumbs down for me. Okay. Keith, there you go. Let us know how the cornmeal goes. I feel like if folks go search in the group, I feel like cornmeal has been used as one of the options when you can't find wheat bran or you can't use it for various reasons. And one of the options from like a grocery store perspective, depending on where you're physically located too, you may not be able to even order wheat bran at a good, decent price conveniently and in the quantities that you need. I think people have used cornmeal in the past just as a pure substrate to raise them in general. So definitely worth throwing out some info, Keith, once you've got it. All right, we are at 2:47, 13 minutes left. Sue, cleaning is exactly the issue. I've been spritzing the bins instead of feeding veggies because it was less effort and that attracts sheds and anything else that gives the worms traction. Yep. The exoskeletons are super good at being blown around. It's one of the reasons why once the mealworms are large enough that you can see them well enough in the tray. And that's a very just-any way of trying to explain it, because I can look at a tray and I can tell you, yep, we need to switch over to water gel crystals. It's age of maybe like 4 to 5 weeks old for me, where they start to really build up the exoskeletons in that tray. And if we go to spray it, it'll blow that stuff across, it sticks to the other side, and basically becomes it reminds me of like a rock climbing wall, where they just go to town and they'll find a way if they can. There's enough of them in there moving around, they'll figure it out. Kayla would love to know what kind of grinder you use. Split pea flour in the food processor is a pain. It's a big one. I can show you. So little backstory. I ordered this or bought this from a farm in Texas that was raising mealworms, and they decided to switch, and they were doing it more for R&D to understand the life cycle and figure everything out. But they had a grinder because they would grind up their own feed. And so turn this around. Pop, pop. That guy. So not a standard kitchen grinder. Nice giant hopper right there. Goes down into there. And it gets fine enough that it makes a nice split pea flour. So the flour it's not crumbly. It's a nice dense flour. You want it nice and small like flour. So this is what we've got here. I have not used somebody here mentioned using a Ninja, something like that. General food processor will probably get the trick done from a home perspective. But that company that switched gears, they wanted to go into the food protein world. And so they raised those mealworms to get hands-on experience with the life cycle, better understand, so they could talk the talk basically. And then once they were done with all of their testing, they had a kind of a package deal, because there's not a lot of crazy guys out there like me, or crazy people in general, who would want to be scooping that stuff up at the time. I think now it's starting to build. There's more folks that are interested in doing it, but I was able to get several different things that have come in handy to get me here from those guys. So really glad I got hooked up with them. A couple weeks ago found some mites in one tray and was thinking what to do. Decided to take worms, frass, and bran and divide all contents to more hungry trays. Works perfectly. All mites gone. Just some ideas for not wasting worms. I gotta read that again. A couple weeks ago I found mites in one tray. Was thinking what to do. Decided to take worms, frass, and bran and divided all content to more hungry trays. So I was like, are you saying you took a mite-infested tray and spread those contents into other trays and that got rid of the mites? That seems counterintuitive to me. Some trays eat faster. Huh. Did you deprive them of moisture to help kill off the mites? I'll be honest, that would be the last thing I would do, is to take a mite-infested tray and spread it to other non-mite-infested trays. So I'm really interested in how that worked. I'm trying to think through. The trays will eat faster. Thought if they can eat so many things, decided to feed them with mites. Oh. Do mealworms eat the mites? I'm having a knowledge crisis moment. Did we not know that mealworms eat mites? And they just, if they get out of control to where the mealworms can't keep them in check, if they bite each other? Huh. Yes, the mealworms will eat pupa, 100%. If they're not hydrated well enough, the mealworms will go after the nice, juicy, delicious insides of a pupa every single day. They'll eat what I've noticed is they'll start at the head. Maybe that's where they're tastiest. I don't know. But they'll start at the head and eat down and eat the inside out. They can eat mites. Okay, that's interesting. So if the mite infestation is not out of control, you're saying if you introduce more larvae, more mealworm larvae, then they will eat and consume the mites? Wally, that's an interesting theory, but more like for water content. Oh, so the mites become juicy little nuggets of moisture. Oh man, this is blowing my mind. So if they'll do that, as long as that mite population doesn't get out of control, the mealworms would keep up with it and be able to consume them faster than the mites reproduce and expand their colony. I wonder if that's one of the reasons, like one of the mitigating things we do for mites is you remove all moisture. You just take it out and you reduce your humidity. And the thought process was that you're not giving moisture to those mites, right? Because high humidity and a lot of moisture, that's when people see the mite outbreak. And I think you're still going to need to do that. You reduce your humidity, you pull out your moisture content, so the mites don't like non-humid environments, but then the mealworms are deprived of their moisture sources as well, so they're going to eat the mites? I don't want to get mites, but this blows my mind. Huh. So the larvae will cannibalize each other. So they'll eat insects. Huh. Bryce with the moisture thing. Felicia, I'll keep my humidity at 60%. I've actually gone down to 50, Felicia, and things are okay. But that was because I was doing supers as well, and I was having issues with them. I was trying to mitigate that. And my supers are still dying. I think they have Denso. I've stopped everything from a super perspective. Nothing's going out the door. I'm trying a different supplier just to get some in and try something. I don't know. Yes, it was for not wasting invested tray. That makes sense. So like one of the problems with mite infestations is it can kill the mealworms, right? Like if it gets bad enough, it'll kill the mealworms. So you were trying out something to. Jacek, do you have any resources or studies that show mealworms eating mites? Where did that idea come from? That's fantastic. Lucas Worms, welcome. We've only got about 4 minutes left, Lucas. I have to run at the top of the hour. Unfortunately, I can't go over. I need to do deliveries before places close. But everything will be posted to the group. All recording. Facebook's recording for us. No, okay. Wow, that's wild. I have no idea how to test that. Like even if I got mites, I don't know how to validate that the mealworms are eating them. It makes sense though, now that we've talked through it. And is very interesting. He basically turned those little mites into nice chicken nuggets for the little morsels. Popcorn chicken. Little popcorn chicken for the mealworms. It was just trying, as they eat each other, larvae, pupae, even beetles, why not? They can eat mites. Yeah. I mean, the logic holds. You're 100% right. And maybe that's been part of what's happening with how we are removing moisture and humidity. Then the mealworms are going to try to get it from somewhere, so they tackle the mites, as well as the mites dying off. Or maybe that's just happening because the mealworms are consuming them like crazy. Now I'm all itchy. Comment of the day, Felicia. I love that. Lucas, black soldier fly larva update. Yes. The food waste thing is going phenomenal. So I've been getting 3 minutes left, so I'm going to try to jam everything in. I've been getting food waste consistently from a couple places in my city and feeding that to the soldier fly neonates. I just harvested Sunday. I did come in on a Sunday and do some work. And I was really curious about where things were at with them, so I wanted to come in and see what was going on. And they had eaten all sorts of stuff. I've got good, juicy, big, beefy larvae. At least I think they are. I think they're awesome. I'm a little biased, so I need to get them in other people's hands to see what they think. But that's going really well. I tried I've seen it all over the place, and you've mentioned it to me and sent me info on, the ramps when they're ready to go, that sort of thing. And so I tested a little bit of that with some PVC pipe that I had. 2-minute warning. Thank you, ma'am. So I tested that with some PVC pipe, and I've already got ideas on how I can build something inside of that tray that would be, something I can easily put in and out of those trays. I think I'm going to have dedicated soldier fly larva trays and dedicated mealworm trays. And I think I can build something that will help with a collection process, either outside of the tray or potentially inside. And it's just a simple cup that I, am able to pull out and put in, pull out, put in. So it's going well. I've got soldier fly larvae available. I'm shipping those out. Super excited. I just reached out to my town. I put a business license request in to actually do business in city limits and start a food recycling program to collect food from people, feed that to the larvae, and I'm super excited. So it's going well so far. Lots of video updates on various different places, YouTube, Facebook, etc. But it's going well. All right, so we will wrap up. And I will go through it. If I missed anybody, I'm really sorry. I'll go through and check everything. I've got one thing for Velazar to reply to with the link, and then a couple other things I just want to check. Facebook has gotten all this for us, and once they know that we haven't done anything bad, they're going to post it to the group, and it'll be out there for review, so you guys can tackle that. And then we'll get another one of these on a different day at time. I try to mix it up a little bit, just because people's schedules may not work out for this one. Hopefully it'll work for the next one. So really good topics today. Jacek, I'm super intrigued by this grain mite thing, and thank you everybody for all the good questions, all the good back and forth. We will see you later. Have an awesome afternoon, evening, morning. I appreciate it. Bye all.